Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. We're continuing in the Mishnah Yomi for Chai Sivan. We are in the first parak of Terumot at Mishnah Dalet. Now, yesterday we talked about people who cannot take Truma. Now, in Mishnah Dalet, we learn about taking Truma from one item onto a different classification of item. Ein tormin zaitim ol shemen. You may not take Truma off of olives onto olive oil. Likewise, velo anavim alayain. You can't take truma from grapes onto wine. So in these cases, the oil or the wine is still tevel. There's still truma mixed in, and he needs to separate truma off of the wine and the oil. And to make it easy on himself, he wants to designate olives or grapes to do so. He cannot do this. This would be taking away effectively from the Kohanim. It's better to give them the finished product, the oil or the wine itself, not the raw material. There's a machlokes what's chayiv in truma deraita. There's even an opinion that grapes and olives are not even chayiv deraita until they become wine and oil. It's a minority opinion. Most Rishonim, the Rashi Taisa, say that dagan tirish yitzhar, that grapes, olives, and grains are definitely chayiv deraita, even if they're not completely made into the liquid form, which is the most common form. The Mishnah continues, Vim tarmu, Beit Shammai omrim trumat atzman behen. He says truma itself is inside of this. So it is truma b'di'evid, but it's not truma. Bartner explains it doesn't work on the liquid. It doesn't work on the shemen. So there's truma is taken from the zaytim, but not from the shemen. So now it's a mix of tevel and truma called meduma. We're going to learn a lot about meduma later. It's a mix. Since it's mixed truma and tevel, it has to be sold to the Kohen for the value of the tevel, of the non-truma in, because the truma, of course, is a gift to the Kohen. Beit Hillel omrim ein trumatan truma. It doesn't accomplish anything. You haven't created meduma, you haven't created a mix, but separating truma out from the grapes or the olives onto the oil or the wine form is not effective, according to Beit Hillel. Now, Mishnah Hey proceeds with a similar concept. Ein tormin min leket, min shicha min peya. We cannot take truma from leket shicha peya. These are matznot aniyim. They're gifts to the poor, which are not they're not required to take truma from because they are basically made hefker for the aniyim. Mishnah continues min hefker, and also from hefker. Hefker is exempt from tithes, as we discussed by Shvit, that the produce of Shvit, which is made hefker, is exempt from the trumot and maisrot. Lo meiser rishon shnit lo trumato, and we can't take truma from meiser rishon that truma was taken from it. Now, meiser rishon goes by default to the Leviim, and the Leviim would actually take 10% of their meiser and give it to the Kohen, and that was trumas meiser. So that was the section of truma taken from the gift to the Leviim, the Meiser Rishon to the Leviim, and this implies if the Leviim who own this Meiser Rishon have not taken their Truma to Meiser, they could actually use it, since it's Chayev and Truma, it's Chayev and Truma at Meiser, they could use it to take Truma Gedola onto other produce as well. Mishnah continues, Loma Meiser Sheni, Vehekda Sheniftu, and not Meiser Sheni, or holy consecrated items that were then redeemed. Now, Meiser Sheni is still, you still own it once you separate Meiser Sheni, but it has to be eaten in Yerushalayim, or you could redeem it by exchanging the value onto money, but Tzarta Kesev, and then you could take the money to Yerushalayim and buy food there and eat it. And the same with Hektish, if you were Makdish an animal, and then it was redeemed, that money is now holy and has to be taken to bring Korbanos, given to the temple. But these items, Hektish that's redeemed, or Meiser Sheni that's redeemed, these are not subject to tithes, so they can't be used to take tithes on other produce. Lo mina chayev ala pater, and you can't take from something chayev in tithes onto something pater in tithes. The Bartner explains it's not chayev in truma until it's 1/3 of its growth. So less than that, it's not chayev, and it's you can't be taking tithes onto something that's less than 1/3 grown. Lo mina pater mina chayev, and vice versa. If you have a crop that's not yet a shlish, not yet 1/3 grown, you can't use it for truma on something else. And not from separated onto attached. Meaning a pile of produce you've already cut off the ground can't be the source of the truma for produce that's still attached to the ground. The Bartner says, Lashon harama lo shayach ela batolish. Truma really can only be taken from tolish, lo mina mechuber ala tolish, really. So you can't be taking produce, you can't be doing truma, harama, from something still attached to the ground. That's where the Bartner is explaining. Harama is only shayach if something is already separated from the ground. Lo min yashan ol chadash, and not from the old onto the new. So the Bartner explains there's a same year rule by truma. It has to be in the same year. It can't be from last year's produce. Lo min perot haaretz al perot chutz la'aretz, and you can't take truma from perut of Eretz Yisrael onto items that are not from Eretz Yisrael. Lo min perot chutz la'aretz al perot la'aretz, and not from perot of outside Eretz Yisrael onto produce from inside Eretz Yisrael. Now, we usually say that produce from chutz la'aretz is not even subject to Truma and Meiser at all, but we have mentioned that in some areas, such as Syria, which is right next to Eretz Yisrael and was conquered by David the Melech, that rabbinically, Truma and Meiser and Shvit apply to some degree. So even there, where there is Truma and Meiser D'Rabbanan, we can't separate from those items that are only Chayav D'Rabbanan onto something that's really from Eretz Yisrael proper, that's Chayav D'Oraita. The Mishnah concludes, Ve'im Tarmu, if he went ahead and did this, Ein Trumatan Truma, it doesn't work, because again, Rabotai, these items are not subject to Meiser, they're exempt from tithes, or they're not subject to the same degree as the items you're tithing onto. So you couldn't, for example, take produce from Syria and separate tithes from that to exempt your produce from Eretz Yisrael, and it simply does not work. Good Shabbos, Rabbosai, Shabbat Shalom.